Noah stood at the far end of the observation dome, his back pressed against the cold metal wall. The broken moon outside hung in the sky like a lifeless rock. The once bustling research station had now turned into a battlefield. Every corner of the dome echoed with the sound of distant explosions as alien ships circled above. Noah, the only human left, was trapped. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even a fighter. Noah had come to this remote outpost to study the stars, to find beauty in the universe, but now his world had crumbled around him. The station was under attack by a group of alien forces, an elite faction of warriors known for their cold precision. Their leader, Commander Lariah, had orders to destroy every human here. And Noah, he was the last one standing. Lariah's footsteps echoed in the narrow hallway outside the dome. Noah knew what was coming next. She would break through the door, and it would be the end. There was no way out, but in the silence that filled the room, he heard the hum of his guitar. It sat on the floor beside him, untouched since the invasion had begun. The guitar had always been his escape, the only thing that brought him peace. With a sigh, Noah reached down and picked up the instrument. He ran his fingers over the strings, hesitating at first. It seemed so pointless now. But in this moment of fear, the familiar feel of the guitar brought him some comfort. He strummed a few soft chords, the sound low and melancholy, filling the empty space around him. His eyes closed as he lost himself in the music. This was all he had left, this simple, beautiful sound that reminded him of home. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the door. Lariah had arrived. Her boots stomped into the room, her weapon raised, aimed directly at him. Her icy blue eyes locked onto his, her alien face unreadable, like a predator watching its prey. "End of the line. Human," she growled, her voice cold and unwavering. "Prepare to face your fate." Noah didn't stop playing. He couldn't. Music was all he had left to give, even in the face of death. He played the same few chords, but this time, he poured everything into them. His fingers moved with ease, each note flowing from his heart. The tension in the room thickened as Lariah took another step closer. But then something strange happened. Lariah lowered her weapon just slightly, her grip loosening. Her eyes, once full of the cold determination of a warrior, now showed a hint of something else, something Noah didn't quite understand. She stopped in her tracks, her body still, listening to the music. It was as if the air had changed, and the power of the song had somehow reached her. Lariah had heard many things before, alien war chants, the screams of battle. But never, in all her years, had she heard music like this. Her brows furrowed, as though trying to understand what this strange human was doing. Her mind, trained to block out anything that didn't serve her mission, now couldn't shake the strange feeling that stirred within her. The melody was soothing, yet full of emotion, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. Noah's voice trembled as he continued, unaware of the power his music held over the alien warrior. He was too lost in the melody to notice how the room had shifted. His song had reached out to the depths of her being, cracking through the hardened layers of her training, her upbringing, her culture. Lariah's heart, once cold and distant, now began to feel. For the first time in a long while, Lariah remembered something she had buried deep inside herself. It wasn't just the music. It was the raw emotion behind it, the human vulnerability that came with it. She had never felt this way before, and it confused her. She had been trained to see weakness as something to be crushed, not something to embrace. But now, standing in front of Noah, she didn't know what to think. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lariah stood frozen, her weapon still in her hand, but the desire to destroy had faded. What she felt now was something altogether different. Noah's song ended, the last note hanging in the air like a memory. He opened his eyes and looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time. He had been playing in a state of shock, hoping against hope that somehow his music would reach her, that she would hear him. But now he saw it, something in her eyes. For a long moment, Neither of them spoke. Lariah was the first to break the silence. What was that? Her voice was softer now, quieter, as if she was unsure whether to even ask. Noah didn't know how to answer. He had no words for what had just happened, but he knew one thing for sure. His music had done something no weapon ever could. It had stopped a warrior in her tracks. It had made her listen. And for the first time since the invasion began, Noah felt a glimmer of hope. The alien woman had dropped her weapon, and he had no idea what would happen next. The music filled the room, weaving a thread between Noah and Lariah, each note carrying a story, an emotion, a thought that seemed to transcend all the barriers that once stood between them. For Lariah, this was a new world, one she never expected to encounter. Her species had long discarded emotions in the pursuit of efficiency, strength, and survival. But as Noah played, she found herself understanding something she never thought she would: a feeling. Noah played another melody, his fingers moving gently over the strings. This time, the music was softer, slower, filled with longing. He didn't speak as he played, letting the sound fill the silence between them. His mind was a whirlwind, but his hands were steady. Music had always been his way to cope with uncertainty. And right now, it was all he had. Lariah stood in front of him, her posture still tense, but her expression less hard than before. She was no longer holding her weapon, though she kept it close, her hand hovering near it. But her eyes were fixed on Noah, watching him with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something she couldn't name. When the last note faded away, she blinked, as though waking from a dream. Her mind was still trying to make sense of the emotions the music had stirred within her. It felt strange, unsettling, like being pulled into an unfamiliar current. The warrior in her wanted to push it away, to control it, but something in Noah's music was telling her to let it be. That was different, she said, her voice softer than it had been before. What did you play just now? Noah paused, his fingers resting on the strings of the guitar. It's called a ballad, he explained. It's a song about longing, about missing someone or something. Sometimes it's not about what's in front of you, but about what's far away, what's lost. Lariah stared at him for a long moment, processing his words. She had never known such a thing existed. In her culture, there was no room for loss. There was only the mission, only survival. Emotions were a luxury that her people had long discarded. Longing, she repeated, as though testing the word. I don't understand. Noah smiled a little, feeling the weight of her confusion. I didn't expect you to, he said softly. But maybe you will one day. Lariah crossed her arms, her eyes drifting to the window where the broken moon hung in the sky. The stillness of the night seemed to make everything even more intense, as if the whole universe was watching them. She had been trained to believe that emotions were weak, that they only made you vulnerable. And yet, standing here with Noah, listening to the human music that made her feel something, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything she had believed in might be wrong. She turned back to him, her gaze steady. You humans, you have emotions all the time. Why is that? Why not just suppress them like we do? Noah thought for a moment before replying. It's not about having emotions or not having them. It's about accepting them. We feel joy, pain, fear, and love, but instead of fighting it, we try to understand it. Music helps with that. It helps us express what words can't. Lariah's eyes narrowed slightly. You accept pain. Noah's face softened. Yes, pain is a part of life. It's not something to fear or avoid. It teaches you something. Lariah was quiet for a long time, her mind racing as she processed his words. She had always been taught that pain was something to avoid at all costs, something to be eradicated. But Noah's calm, almost peaceful demeanor was challenging everything she had been trained to believe. Do you always play like this? She asked, her voice thoughtful. Sometimes, Noah replied. It depends on what I'm feeling. But playing is a way for me to connect with the world around me, with the people I've lost, with the life I've left behind. It's how I understand everything. It's how I find peace." Larea was silent again, but this time her thoughts weren't filled with doubt. Instead, they were filled with something else, a curiosity she hadn't felt in years. She looked at Noah, truly looked at him for the first time. He was just a man, a human, and yet he carried something powerful within him, something that she couldn't quite name. "What happens next?" Larea asked, breaking the silence. "What do we do now?" Noah shrugged slightly, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "I don't know. I guess as we keep playing." Larea tilted her head, considering his words. It was a simple answer, but somehow it made sense. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel the need to control the situation, to force an outcome. She simply wanted to see where this strange, unexpected connection might lead. She looked down at the guitar. "Will you teach me?" Noah's eyes widened slightly, and he blinked in surprise. "Teach you?" Larea nodded, her gaze serious but open. "I want to understand this. I want to know how it feels to express myself like that." For a moment, Noah was silent. He hadn't expected her request, but the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. If music could change her heart, could help her understand things beyond her training, then maybe, just maybe, it could help her find something she had long lost, her own humanity. "I'll teach you," Noah said, his voice steady and warm. "But it's not going to be easy." Larea gave him a rare, small smile. "I've spent my entire life learning things that weren't easy." And so, as the music continued to echo through the observation dome, the unlikely pair began a new journey together. Noah, the musician who had once played for himself, and Larea, the warrior who had never known the power of music, now found themselves exploring a new rhythm, one that had the potential to change not just their lives, but the fate of two worlds. Larea stood still, her eyes fixed on Noah, her mind racing with confusion. The song he had played, those simple, yet powerful notes, had done something to her. It wasn't just the melody, it was the feeling behind it. She had never felt this way before. The strength of her training as a warrior, her cold resolve to carry out her mission, seemed to be fading away. For the first time, she felt vulnerable. Noah watched her silently, unsure of what was happening. His fingers still rested lightly on the guitar, the last note still hanging in the air. He could tell that the atmosphere had shifted. There was no longer the feeling of imminent danger, no tension that pulled the air taut with violence. Instead, there was something unspoken, something raw and new. Larea slowly lowered her weapon, her grip loosening as if the very idea of violence had become foreign to her. She blinked a few times, trying to make sense of what was happening. The human in front of her had played music, something she had never understood. And yet, it had reached her. It had stirred something deep inside. Noah, sensing the change but unsure of what it meant, broke the silence. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop the fight. He trailed off, unsure of how to explain. "I just wanted to play. It helps me think." Larea's eyes narrowed, her mind racing. "Think," she echoed softly. "What kind of thinking can music give you?" Noah set his guitar down carefully, his eyes meeting hers. "Music helps me process everything. It helps me cope, even when everything seems impossible." His voice softened as he continued. It's a way to express what words can't." Larea studied him, her brow furrowed in thought. Her species had no music, no art, no way to express emotion the way humans did. They had evolved to be purely practical, focused on efficiency and survival. Emotions were considered a weakness, something to be eliminated in the pursuit of perfection. The idea of music, something as fleeting and subjective as sound, was hard for her to understand. Larea began, her voice trailing off. "I've never experienced something like this." I don't understand it. Noah smiled gently. It's okay. You don't have to understand it right now. Music doesn't need to be understood. It just needs to be felt. He paused, then added with a small chuckle, it's sort of like you and me right now. I'm not sure what's happening either. Loraya didn't respond right away. She stood there, her weapon still lowered but in her hand, her gaze fixed on Noah. She had been trained to never show weakness, to never let her guard down. But this human, this musician, was making it difficult to keep up her walls. After a long moment, Loraya shook her head, as though waking up from a trance. I should kill you, she said, her voice no longer as cold and commanding. I should have killed you the moment I found you. Noah's heart skipped a beat. He had feared this. Fear that her sense of duty would win over whatever strange connection had formed between them. He braced himself for the blow that never came. But I can't, Loraya continued, her voice softer now. Something about what you played. I can't explain it, but it's changed something in me. Noah let out a slow breath, surprised and relieved. Maybe it's because you've been listening to the wrong things for too long. Maybe the universe isn't just about war and fighting. Loraya's eyes widened slightly. You think I've been listening to the wrong things? She asked, almost in disbelief. Noah nodded, not backing down. I think you've been taught to believe that your way is the only way. But there's more to this world, more to life, than what you've been trained to do. Music is proof of that. It shows you that there's beauty in things you can't control, in things you don't understand. Loraya felt a wave of discomfort wash over her. She had spent her entire life being trained to destroy, to dominate, to lead her people in battle. She had never considered there might be another way, a different truth. I don't know how to accept this, Loraya admitted, her voice quiet. I don't know how to let go of everything I've ever known. Noah's eyes softened. You don't have to let go of everything. Maybe just listen a little longer. There was a brief silence between them, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Outside, the sounds of the distant explosions had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of the station. The world around them felt still, almost suspended in time. For a brief moment, it was just Noah and Loraya, two beings from different worlds, standing in a space that neither of them had expected. Finally, Loraya stepped forward, hesitating just a little before lowering her weapon completely. Her gaze lingered on Noah, then back at the guitar. What else can you play? She asked, her voice soft but full of curiosity. Noah smiled, his fingers already drifting to the strings of his guitar. I've got a few songs in mind. And as he began to play again, the music filled the room once more, weaving a strange and beautiful connection between them. The alien woman had come to destroy him, but now she was listening to his song, something she had never imagined she'd be able to do. In this small moment, Noah felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. And he knew, somehow, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. The days passed slowly in the observation dome, but the silence between Noah and Loraya felt less heavy. The music that had once stood between them, something so foreign to her, had now become a thread connecting their lives in ways neither of them expected. Noah spent more time playing for her, teaching her about the songs he knew. Loraya, in turn, listened intently, her sharp alien eyes focused on every movement of his fingers across the guitar. She had always been good at learning, but this was something completely different. This wasn't the cold, structured knowledge she was used to. This was personal. It was messy. And somehow it felt right. One evening, as the orange glow of the distant stars filtered through the cracked windows of the dome, Loraya set down her weapon. She had started leaving it nearby rather than holding it, and sat on the cold metal floor next to Noah. Her arms were crossed loosely, her posture less rigid than before. I think I understand a little more, she said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. Not everything, but something. Noah looked at her, a small smile on his face. I'm glad. Larea took a deep breath. Your music is like a language without words. I hear it, and it tells me things I never thought I could feel. He nodded, his fingers absent-mindedly strumming the strings. That's the point. Music is about what's inside, not just what's outside. For a brief moment, Larea let herself sink into the words, into the music, letting her mind wander through the possibilities of a life where emotion and feeling weren't something to fear. But then, as always, reality crept back in. She stood up abruptly, her eyes narrowing, as if something in the air had shifted. I can't stay here forever, she said, her voice sharp. I have a mission, a duty to my people. Noah looked up at her, surprised. I thought you were done with that. Larea's gaze flickered, but her expression hardened again. I am not like you, Noah. You can choose music, choose freedom, but I don't have that luxury. I was born to fight, to conquer, to lead. The words hit Noah like a cold splash of water. He had hoped that music might be enough to change her, to show her a world where she didn't have to fight, where there was more to life than battles and war. But it seemed like the scars of her past were too deep to ignore, too embedded in her identity. I don't want to be the person I was anymore, Larea continued, almost as if she was speaking more to herself than to Noah, but I don't know if I can change. Noah stood up slowly, his fingers still lightly touching the guitar. Maybe you don't need to change all at once. Maybe it's about taking one step at a time. You've already changed in ways you don't even realize. Larea met his eyes, the doubt in her gaze still there but slightly softened by his words. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to escape the rigid, emotionless world she had known for so long, but every part of her had been built to obey, to follow orders without question. And now, standing in this strange place with this strange human, the lines between what she had been and what she could become were blurred. Noah saw the conflict in her eyes. He reached out slowly, his hand hovering in the air, before he gently placed it on the neck of the guitar. Music is about change, Larea. It's about transformation. Every song I play, every note I strum, it's all about growing, learning, becoming something new. Larea stayed silent, her eyes drifting to the guitar. And what if my people don't understand this? Change. What if they come for me? Noah frowned, his grip tightening around the guitar. He could sense the fear in her voice, and it made his chest tighten. Then we'll deal with it together, he said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Larea's eyes softened for a moment, the hard edges of her warrior exterior slipping away just enough for her to let herself believe him. I don't know how to trust that, she admitted. You don't have to trust it all at once. Noah replied, his voice gentle but resolute. Just take the first step. I'm here, and I won't leave you to face this alone. The two of them stood in silence for a long time, the distant hum of the station the only sound. Outside, the stars twinkled in the endless void, and for a moment, everything felt still. Larea's thoughts were a whirlwind, her past, her training, her mission, all crashing together with the strange, foreign emotions Noah had awakened in her. The simple act of playing music, of allowing herself to feel, had unsettled everything she thought she knew about herself and the world around her. But as she looked at Noah, standing there with an unwavering kindness in his eyes, she felt something shift inside. For the first time, Larea wasn't sure of what came next, but she knew that this moment, this fragile, beautiful moment, was the beginning of something new. I'll stay, she said quietly, more to herself than to Noah. For now, I'll stay. A relieved smile spread across Noah's face. Then let's make the most of it. And so, with the stars as their silent witnesses, Noah and Larea began a new chapter in their strange, unlikely journey. The music continued, a constant companion to their uncertain path. Larea knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she felt like it was a road worth walking. The days in the observation dome felt different now. What had once been a place of fear and isolation had transformed into something else entirely. The music was no longer just a form of expression for Noah. It had become a bridge between two worlds, a way for him and Lariah to communicate in ways words never could. Lariah had continued to listen, to learn. With each new song Noah played, she felt a little less like the warrior she had been and more like someone discovering a new part of herself. The music awakened something inside her, something she had buried long ago. She could feel emotions she had once ignored: joy, sadness, hope. For the first time in her life, she wasn't suppressing what she felt. She was allowing herself to feel everything. But deep down, there was always the question: what would happen when the rest of her people found out? Could she really walk away from everything she had been trained to be? Could she leave behind a life of conquest and war for something as uncertain as human emotions and music? Lariah wasn't sure, but she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't go back to who she was, not after everything Noah had shown her. One evening, as the two of them sat together in the dome, Lariah's attention was drawn to a low, distant hum. It was faint at first, barely noticeable, but it grew louder with each passing second. The sound of a ship, a large one, approaching. Noah looked up from his guitar, his face tightening with concern. "That's not one of ours," he muttered, glancing nervously at Lariah. "Who else could it be?" Lariah stood up quickly, her instincts kicking in. "I'm going to check," she said, her voice more serious now. Her hand hovered over the weapon she had left nearby, but she quickly let it drop to her side. She was tired of fighting. The hum grew louder until it reverberated in the walls of the dome. It was a warship, unmistakably one of the ships from her fleet. The alien forces were coming, and they had come to finish what Lariah had started. Lariah's chest tightened. She knew what this meant. Her people would never accept her decision to stay. They would never understand why she had chosen to listen to music, to embrace emotions, instead of following the mission she had been assigned. The warship was a sign that the time for her to choose was running out. "Noah," Lariah said quietly, her voice trembling slightly, "they're here. I have to go." Noah stood up quickly, his face filled with alarm. "You don't have to go. You can stay with me. We can fight this together." But Lariah shook her head, her expression pained. "I don't think you understand, Noah. I can't just turn my back on everything I've been trained to do. I was born to lead them, and if I don't return, they'll come after me. They'll come after you." Noah stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. "Then we'll fight together. We'll stand together, Lariah. I don't care if you're an alien warrior or a human. This doesn't have to end in violence." But Lariah could see the fear in his eyes. He didn't understand the gravity of her situation. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a commander. Her actions had consequences. "I've heard your music," Lariah said softly, looking him in the eyes. "And I know you believe there's another way. But the reality is, my people don't understand things like this. They don't understand peace. All they know is war." Noah's voice shook slightly as he responded. "But you don't have to be like them, Lariah. You can change. I believe in you." Lariah closed her eyes for a moment, trying to push away the doubt that threatened to overwhelm her. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that she could somehow bring peace, but the weight of her duty pressed heavily on her shoulders. How could she walk away from everything she had ever known? How could she abandon the very people who had raised her to be a warrior? A faint click echoed in the distance, the sound of doors opening on the warship. Lariah knew it wouldn't be long before they reached the dome. Her time to decide was running out. "I have to go," she said, her voice firm, but filled with sadness. "I have to face them." Noah watched her, helpless. He couldn't make her stay, but he didn't want her to go. He had come to care for her deeply, more than he had expected. "Please be careful," Noah said quietly, his voice filled with concern. "And know this, no matter what happens, you're not alone. You've shown me that there's more to life than just fighting. There's more than just war, and I'll never forget that." Lariah nodded slowly, her eyes softening. "Thank you, Noah, for everything. I never thought I'd learn this much in such a short time." With one final look at him, Loraya turned and walked toward the door. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she couldn't stay here forever. She had to face her past and the people she had once called allies. But as she stepped out of the dome, a part of her hoped, perhaps for the first time, that there could be another way, a way where she didn't have to fight. Noah stood at the door, watching her leave. He knew he couldn't stop her, but he couldn't help feeling that this was the beginning of something bigger, something that could change everything. As the hum of the warship grew louder, Noah made a silent promise to himself. He would do whatever it took to help Loraya find peace, even if it meant facing his own fears. The warship hovered above the shattered surface of the moon, its massive form casting a shadow over the observation dome, where Noah stood, waiting. His heart raced in his chest, each thump a reminder of how much was at stake. The hum of the ship's engines filled the air, vibrating the ground beneath his feet. Loraya had left, stepping into the unknown. Noah didn't know what she would face, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point. Whether she returned as a warrior or as someone forever changed by the music she had listened to, Noah wasn't sure. But one thing was certain. He had to do something. He couldn't just sit by and wait for whatever would happen next. The door to the dome opened with a soft hiss, and Noah turned quickly, his hand instinctively reaching for the guitar beside him. But it was only Loraya. She stood in the doorway, her posture different from when she had left. Gone was the rigidity of the warrior. Now she seemed like someone who had shed a part of her old self, someone who was still grappling with what she had learned. Her eyes met Noah's, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Loraya stepped forward, her face set in a mixture of determination and uncertainty. "I've spoken to them," she said quietly. Her voice was low but steady. "They're waiting for me. The leaders, the ones I used to obey. They want me to return with them, to continue the mission. But—" She paused, and Noah could see the struggle in her eyes. She was torn. He stepped closer, sensing the weight of the moment. "But you don't want to go back, do you?" Noah asked, his voice gentle but firm. Loraya shook her head slowly. "No, I don't want to be the person I was. I've seen something different now, something more." Her gaze flickered to the guitar Noah held. "Something your music opened up inside of me. But they won't understand. They can't." Noah took a deep breath, trying to understand the depth of her pain. "Maybe they can," he said softly, looking directly at her. "Maybe you can show them that there's another way, a way where music, where feelings, aren't seen as weakness, but as strength." Loraya met his eyes, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, they stood there, the tension between them thick, the hum of the warship still faintly vibrating in the air. Noah could feel his heart pounding, unsure of how to reach her. He had never been in a situation like this before. He was just a man with a guitar, a man who believed in peace and hope. But Loraya, she was a commander. She was part of something far greater than he could imagine. "You don't understand," she said after a pause. "The people I serve, they value strength above all else. They believe in power and control. They've never heard of what you're offering." Noah's fingers tightened on the guitar, the familiar sensation of the strings beneath his fingers giving him a sense of calm. He thought for a moment before speaking, his voice steady. "Then maybe it's time they did." Loraya shook her head, but Noah could see the crack in her resolve. She had always been strong, always in control, but now, with every song Noah played, a little more of that control was slipping away. "I can't just walk away from everything," she said, though her voice was no longer as certain. "I was trained to lead, to fight. It's all I've ever known. And if I go back now, they'll demand my loyalty. They'll force me to fight." Noah stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her arm. "Loraya, you don't have to fight. Not anymore. You can be more than that. You've already shown that." For a moment, there was only silence. The warship hovered outside, waiting. But inside, in the quiet dome, Noah and Lariah shared a moment that could change everything. Lariah finally spoke, her voice soft but full of determination. Maybe you're right, but I don't know how to make them understand. I don't know how to make them see that there's more to life than fighting. Noah smiled gently, his fingers brushing across the guitar strings again. Then we'll show them, he said simply. We'll show them together. Lariah turned to face him fully, her eyes searching his face, looking for something. An answer, a promise, maybe even a bit of hope. You'll help me. Of course, Noah replied without hesitation. You've helped me see the world in a new way. Now it's my turn to help you. And with that, the decision was made. Lariah wasn't alone. She didn't have to face her people or the warship outside by herself. Together, they would show them all, her people, his people, the universe itself, that there was another way. The hum of the warship grew louder, but Noah wasn't afraid. He knew that the power of music, the power of change, could break even the strongest barriers, and with Lariah at his side, he believed they could make the world listen. Lariah took a step back toward the door, then turned to Noah with a small, uncertain smile. Let's do it, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Let's show them that there's more than just war. Noah nodded, his heart swelling with a strange mix of hope and excitement. Yes, let's. And as Lariah stepped out into the moonlight, Noah followed. They would face whatever came next together. The world might not be ready for the change they were about to bring, but they would make it impossible to ignore. The moon hung silently in the sky, its cracked surface casting a cold light over the broken dome. Lariah and Noah stood together, staring out at the massive warship that hovered ominously above them. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their choices settling between them. Lariah's eyes flicked between the ship and Noah. The warship was an unmistakable presence, massive, imposing, and filled with the power to end everything in an instant. Her people, the warriors she had once called allies, were inside, waiting for her return, waiting for her to lead them, to carry out the mission they had planned. But Lariah wasn't sure she could do it anymore. Noah, she said quietly, turning to him, I'm not sure I can do this. I don't know if I can face them. Noah gave her a reassuring smile. You don't have to do it alone, Lariah. We're in this together. You've already changed, and you've shown me a side of you that I never thought possible. Her expression softened slightly, though uncertainty still lingered in her eyes. She had been raised to be a warrior, to follow orders without question. Emotions had always been a weakness, something to be erased in the pursuit of efficiency. But Noah had shown her a different way, a way where emotions were not only accepted, but celebrated, where music could speak louder than any weapon ever could. I never imagined that a human could change my world this much, Lariah said, her voice barely above a whisper. You've changed my world too, Noah replied. I didn't expect to be standing here, helping an alien warrior change everything I thought I knew. Lariah looked back at the warship, the sounds of distant voices drifting from it. They had come for her, for the woman who had once led them into battle, who had been one of their fiercest commanders. They wouldn't understand what had happened to her. They wouldn't understand the music, the feelings, the emotions she had embraced. Noah, I can't keep hiding from who I am now. I can't keep pretending to be the person they want me to be, she said, her voice full of resolve. But I don't know how to make them understand. Noah stepped closer, his eyes filled with sincerity. Maybe you don't have to explain it all at once. Maybe you just have to show them. Show them the way you've changed. Show them the music. Show them what you've learned. Lariah felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she could face it. She wasn't alone. The warship's engines hummed louder, the sound now filling the air around them. Lariah stood tall, taking a deep breath. It was time to face her past, to face the people she had once called family. She wasn't sure how they would react, But she knew this. She wasn't going to fight them. She wasn't going to let her past to dictate her future. With a final glance at Noah, she turned and began walking toward the warship. The music played softly in her mind, a reminder of everything she had learned. Noah followed close behind her, his guitar slung over his shoulder. The two of them walked side by side, stepping into the unknown together. As they approached the warship, the massive doors slowly opened, revealing the cold, sterile interior. Alien soldiers, their faces hidden behind helmets, stood in formation. The air inside was tense, the silence thick with expectation. Lurea's eyes scanned the room, her heart racing. She could feel the weight of her past pressing on her, but she stood firm, her shoulders back. She wasn't going to back down. The alien commander at the front stepped forward, his voice echoing through the room. "Lurea, you returned to us. Where have you been? Why have you abandoned your mission?" Lurea met his gaze, her voice steady. "I haven't abandoned anything," she replied. "I've simply realized that there is more to life than fighting. There is more to the universe than conquest and power. There is music. There is emotion. There is life." The commander scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "You've been listening to him, haven't you? A human. You've allowed his music to weaken you. You are no longer fit to lead." Lurea stood her ground, her voice growing stronger. "No, you don't understand. It's not weakness. It's strength. Music doesn't make me weaker. It makes me stronger. It has shown me a way to feel, to connect with the world around me. I've been blind to that my whole life." Noah stepped forward, his guitar in hand. He didn't speak, but his presence was enough. The alien soldiers shifted uncomfortably, the power of his music already beginning to ripple through the room. Lurea looked at the commander one last time. "I am no longer the person I was. If you cannot accept that, then I will walk away. But I will not fight for you, not anymore." The room fell silent. For a long moment, no one moved. Lurea's heart beat in her chest, and Noah stood beside her, ready to play. Finally, the commander spoke again, his voice cold but unsure. "You have changed, Lurea," he said, his tone softer than before. "But I do not know if this change is for the better. You were once one of our greatest leaders." "I was," Lurea replied, her voice calm. "But I am something different now. And if you want to keep fighting, you can do it without me." The commander hesitated, and for the first time, Lurea saw doubt in his eyes. He had known her as a warrior, a leader, but he didn't know her as the person she had become. The person who was not afraid to walk away from violence, from bloodshed. As the silence stretched on, Lurea strummed a few soft chords on Noah's guitar. The simple, peaceful sound filled the room, and slowly, one by one, the alien soldiers began to lower their weapons. They were still unsure, but the music was doing something they hadn't expected. Lurea looked back at Noah, and for the first time since they had met, she saw hope in her own eyes. Together, they had begun to change not just each other, but an entire world.